If you've been working on building your own online business and you just feel like you're not where you think you should be, or you feel like you're working all the time on your business and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and burned out, but you haven't yet gotten any paying clients, or maybe you've gotten one or two, but nowhere near the number that you wanted, chances are there's a 99.9% chance that a lot of it is because you are wasting time on the wrong things. And this is something that I've seen over the past few years, time and time again, with the over 1,000 students and clients at this point that I've worked with and helped build their own online businesses. So what we're going to talk about today is the top 4 reasons that I see so many new and aspiring entrepreneurs end up wasting just so much of their precious time, especially when you've got a job maybe and a family and just so much else going on. You don't have that much of it in the first place to waste. So let's just jump right into the 4 reasons. The first reason that I see happen, this is the number one, the most common reason, is because you are trying to do too much. And this is what I mean. When you're building a business, yeah, there's a lot to do, right? You've got to pretty much run all the roles in your business. So you've got to be the content creator, you've got to be the salesperson, the marketer, you've got to be customer support, you've got to be tech support, you've got to be operations, and of course you have to actually help your clients once you get them. And so there is a lot to do, period. There's no arguing with that. However, the key is you have to understand which stage of your business you're in, which helps you understand what are the top priorities to focus on. So what do I mean? When you're first starting out in your business, infinite number of things that you could be doing. However, it always goes back to your goals and priorities. When you're starting out, the number one goal / priority that you have is to get your first or maybe your next paying client. And so when you keep that in mind, instead of thinking about building a business as this like vague, abstract, big project where you have to do all of these things, when you break it down into focusing on one goal at a time, what happens is then you're able to go back and realize, okay, what are the actual activities that I need to do to help me get to that goal? So for example, you're starting out, your first goal is to get your first paying client or your next paying client, because without those, you have a hobby, you don't have a business, right? And so you have to be thinking about what's going to help me get my first paying client. Is it spending all this time on my website? Is it trying to create this amazing email funnel or pop-up? Is it trying to create all of this blog content for my website that gets 0 traffic right now? And the answer is no. What is going to get you your first paying client the fastest is you finding out where your audience is, speaking to them, showing them how you can help them, and then saying, hey, if you want my help with this further, here's how you can hire me to get even more of my help. I'm breaking it down in a really simplified manner, but the truth is it does not and it should not be that complicated, especially at the beginning stages of your business, because that's what a business is. It's you getting paid to help someone with a problem that they are willing to pay for help with, right? So we're going to talk more about that in a little bit, but that really is the key to knowing what to focus on at each stage of your business, right? So let's say you get your first few clients. All right, then the next phase is for you to start building a foundation for your business. What do I mean by a foundation? This is where you start building a really basic website so that as you start building partnerships, pitching yourself, getting yourself in front of more clients, people can find you online and say, okay, this person has a website. I can learn a little bit more about them. It helps me feel safer about their credibility versus this is just someone who came out of nowhere and has no online footprint, right? And so in that phase, you might spend a few weeks just setting up a really basic website, a really basic lead magnet email sequence, and then you would be done, right? You're not spending months or longer trying to create a really fancy funnel or trying to create the most perfect email sequence ever or make your website super snazzy and up to date. No, because that's not going to make the difference in helping you get more sales. So you do that. Then from there, it becomes about, okay, how do I get myself out there? This is where you might choose one social media platform. You might be on it daily, at least during the week. Maybe you can take the weekends off. And then you would start pitching yourself to other publications, to other audiences where your ideal clients are, and to get in front of them. Then from there, you've built some more credibility, you've gotten a better feel for how to speak to your audience. Then from there, you might scale into paid traffic. So this could turn into a video on how to scale your business in of itself. And I do have another one on just this. So we don't need to go into all of this right now. The key is notice that at each point in your business, you are only focusing on one or two main things, mostly just one main thing so that you get it done, you get the result, and then you can move on to the other things that matter. You're not trying to do everything at every stage, because if you were, you would be setting yourself up for failure. So that's the number one time waster that I see for most new and aspiring entrepreneurs. And again, it's not because you are doing the work or doing work or wasting your time by not working on your business. It's because you're wanting to do a lot, make fast progress, get out there in front of more people. And what sometimes ends up happening when you're that motivated is you try and do everything, you spread yourself too thin, and then you don't get any results. So that's the number one reason that I see most entrepreneurs kind of struggling or sometimes even giving up, because they try to do too much and they get overwhelmed and they get no results. So, okay, enough of that. The second reason that I see happen a lot as well is to really get in your own head with what you're working on in your business. And there are a few times this happens. So as you probably have already felt, when you are starting your business and maybe you don't have a lot of entrepreneurs around you, you didn't grow up with entrepreneurs in your family like I didn't, it can feel kind of like a pipe dream. This whole idea of having an online business that is a completely different way of living your life and making money and doing something that's really fulfilling versus a traditional 9-to-5. I get it. I totally grew up with my parents telling me, okay, get a good job, just put in your years, and that's the best thing we want for you. And so for the longest time, when I was trying to first get started and build my online business, my parents would say, what are you doing? This is so crazy. Why don't you just focus more on your job? In fact, when I got my first paying client, and this was in my first online business back when I was doing digital advertising consulting, which, by the way, was exactly what I did in my job at the time. I was paid very well in my job. My parents thought, oh, that's totally fine. But when I decided to go out there and use those exact skills that I was being paid for in my job to get a client, my dad actually said, oh, how'd you scam them into paying you? Because they just couldn't understand. They just didn't know of this completely different but equally legitimate way to make a living. And so what happens is you start out with not a ton of confidence, right? And then every little thing where you maybe spend a week trying to get a client and you're not able to, what happens? You start thinking, okay, maybe my friends and family are right. Maybe this really is a pipe dream. Then what happens? You become less motivated. You do a little bit less and it becomes a vicious cycle. Or maybe, again, you're not feeling that confident. You're wondering, is this really even possible? Is this really just a real way to make a living? And you get out there and you get a first sales inquiry where someone says, hey, can I talk to you about how I can potentially hire you? And then you talk to them, but they end up saying, oh, you know what? You're not a good fit for me. Maybe you're too expensive, or maybe I'm not ready as the potential client, or maybe there's something else going on. And you start thinking, oh man, I almost got a client, but I didn't. And it's a sign that it's not supposed to happen. Or I'll give you one last example, and I'm sharing these. This is really important to understand the example so that you see this is not something that just happens to you if you're not meant to build your own business. This literally happens to every single entrepreneur. It's just part of the journey. Another common thing that happens is maybe you start pitching some places to speak to their audience or be on their podcast or write some content for them to get in front of their audience. And they say, oh, you know what, this is not a good fit. Or you wait and weeks pass by and they don't even get back to you. And then you start thinking, oh man, I just pitched like 1 or 2 or 3 places and I didn't hear back from a single one. I'm obviously not cut out for this. And so what happens is you really get in your own head and you take every single rejection or just bump on the road as a sign that you are not cut out for this. Now, when that happens, you become less motivated. It takes you longer to hype yourself up, to get even excited about working on your business, and that leads to you wasting more and more time. Maybe you first decide to watch some TV before you start on your business, or you start your business and you stare at your blank screen for a while, or before you hit the send button on pitching a potential client or really any partnership or anything, you just spend a little bit more time thinking, oh man, this is just going to be another rejection or failure. And so what happens then is you spend less and less time, right? You get fewer and fewer results, and it's just a vicious cycle. Now, the reframe for this to stop wasting your time is to be super scientific about how you approach this. So what I mean by that is that instead of thinking about, oh, this is happening to me because this is proof that I am not meant for this, to instead view it as understanding at first, it's just part of every entrepreneur's journey, as I shared with you just a few seconds ago. On top of that, you want to view it in a really scientific way. And I mean, this is a common analogy, but I love sharing because it's true. When you see a baby trying to walk and it falls down the first time, the second time, the 100th time, right? There's something we can learn from that because that baby doesn't assume, oh, I can't walk. It picks itself right back up. Maybe there's a little bit of crying or whatnot, and that's totally fine. But eventually that baby picks itself back up, and after who knows how many times, eventually it's able to walk. It doesn't assume after it falls that, oh, I can't walk. And that's the same attitude that you want to have when you are building your business. With every failure, with every rejection, you want to be seeing it as, okay, this is just another time of me falling. Not that I can't ultimately do this, but this is something where I am going to learn something from it. Then going a step further and thinking, what can I learn from it? How can I analyze and make this better? So I'll give you an example. This happens a lot. I had a client in one of my programs who said, okay, hey, and what she does is in her job, she manages retail shops like for Ann Taylor, Nike, so really established shops, the retail stores. And she helps rearrange the way they're laid out and everything to really significantly increase sales. So she said, hey, I'm going to build my business and I'm going to help boutique owners, small boutique owners who don't have access to the same resources that these big retailers do. And I'm going to help them do this, rearrange their stores to get more sales. And so she came back and she said, hey, I just used everything you said and I followed the exact templates in this program I'm in that you shared, and I pitched 30 people and I got 0 results. So I said, okay, let's sit down and analyze exactly what you pitched. And it turns out the pitches that she had used, they were very generic. They didn't showcase her credibility. They didn't mention at all the other stores that she'd worked for or the results she'd helped them get. So it just felt like, oh, here's this random person coming out of nowhere saying that she's an expert at this when there's no proof. And it wasn't customized to each of the different places that she was pitching. There wasn't any mention of, hey, this is why this pitch would be good for you specifically versus anyone under the sun. So we went back, we evaluated that, showed her, hey, these are the things that you can improve. She went out there and proved that and started getting more and more yeses. So this is a really great example, because it happens to everyone, of really sitting down and analyzing, okay, how can I really improve upon what didn't work so that I make progress, right? So that's reason number 2. Reason number 3 is somewhat similar, but it is a different way of overthinking it. So reason number 3 is overthinking, which causes you to waste a lot of your time. And the reason why I wanted to address it separately is because what I mean by this is it's not necessarily about your fear of rejection or getting in your own head. It's more just when you're creating content, spending way too much time wondering, is this good enough? Is it going to get responses? What if it doesn't get responses? And what could normally take 15 minutes ends up taking you 2 hours. And I've experienced this myself. Pretty much every student and client I've ever worked with has gone through it a little bit too. And let me give you an example. So way back when, again, I was doing my first online business, I was doing digital advertising consulting. I knew my stuff. I mean, I did it in my job. However, I would just overthink the content that I was sharing for my business. So it happened quite more than once. I would be sitting in front of my computer, I would have a blank screen up, and I would know, okay, I think I want to talk about this particular topic. But I would stare at the screen for 2 hours trying to feel like, okay, what's the best first sentence I can even get out there, right? Not writing a single thing. And 2 hours would pass, and then I would not have anything to show for it. Same thing when I first started doing videos. So this was a while back when Periscope was a thing. And I mean, it was brand new. It was the hot thing. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to get on Periscope and talk to people live. It's like basically the back then version of what's now Facebook live streams, for example. And so I would do that. But before I would get on the live stream, I would get really scared of what if I blank in front of my audience? Like, what if I just have a brain freeze? Or what if I just don't have the most perfectly delivered live stream? And so I might spend 45 minutes scripting out exactly what I was going to say. And like preparing for it like a presentation, basically, so that it took me maybe 45 minutes and then another 30 minutes to do the actual live stream. So each live stream was taking me 2 hours or 3 hours total versus just the 30 minutes to hop on. Now, there's a fine line between preparing and over preparing, and it does come with practice. So I'm not saying necessarily that your first video or your first piece of content, you're just going to be able to bang it out like that. But when you are aware of this happening, what you want to repeat to yourself is what I always say in all of my courses: good enough is good enough. When you think about where you started in day 1 of your career, you didn't expect yourself to be at the same level as you would be in month 3 or year 3 or decade 3, right? It's the exact same thing. Don't have that perfect end benchmark for yourself for your first piece of content or your first video. What you're looking for is first, good enough is good enough. So your first piece of content, it might not sound perfectly like you because you're still working on how do I convey my voice through written content. Maybe your first video, it doesn't have the most views or engagement, and maybe you have a few brain freezes on your videos. That's totally fine. As long as it's good enough, you've got it done, you've gotten it out there, and then aim for incremental improvement, not perfection. So what that means is look for one thing that you're going to improve in your next piece of content or next thing you do in your business versus the last time you did it, instead of trying to have it be perfect. So for example, your first piece of content, it might be, okay, if I can just get it done in an hour or 30 minutes, that's the win. That's the incremental improvement. Next time, I'll aim for something that sounds a little bit more like me. Just giving you some examples. Same thing for your live streams. It might be, this time, I'm going to aim to get a really great live stream in 30 minutes. Next time, the incremental improvement will be to get it there and not have any hiccups in the middle of the live stream. So again, just giving you a few examples where it's the key takeaway is you're going to improve. Good enough is good enough now. Don't aim for perfection, aim for incremental improvement. So that is the third reason that causes so much time wasting. The fourth and final reason that I see a lot is not knowing what to do. So this ties back into reason number 1, where I said at each stage in your business, you need to be focusing on only the things that matter. But what if you don't even know what those are, right? Well, that's where getting some sort of mentoring or learning comes in. I have so much free content on my YouTube channel, on my blog. I mean, I've been creating content for a long time now, so I've got a lot of it to share with you. Start there. At some point, if you're wanting even more details, more systematization, then you might be looking to invest in a course or coaching. And I've got that. I mean, you've got lots of options, right? And so those are different options for you down the road. Where you want to start, to keep it simple, is this. What I always say is use as like your guiding light, your northern star. One question: is this going to help me get clients right now? Now, I want to caveat, this is not necessarily something that you want to be asking yourself after you've hit your first 5 figures or 6 figures or multiple 6 figures. Different scenario then, right? I mean, if you're there, you're most likely not watching this video either. So keep that in mind. However, how do you get to your first 5 figures, multiple 5, 6, multiple 6, even 7 figures? I've worked with clients and students through all of these stages. I've been through all of them myself. And I will tell you, how do you get there? You don't start from day one thinking, oh man, how am I gonna run a 6-figure, multiple 6-figure business? Like, yes, have that in the back of your mind. But where you wanna start is with asking, what's gonna get me my next client now? And if you ask that question for whatever it is that you are doing, and the answer is no, this is not gonna help me get my next or first client relatively soon, then you don't do it right now. And again, remember, we just talked about the caveats and who this applies for, but most likely if you're watching this video, this is going to be something you need to hear. So, spending too much time on your website, look, my website's getting 0 traffic. When you're starting out, no one's website gets any traffic. There are, I don't even know, millions, billions of websites on the internet. So if I'm spending all this time blogging on my own website, trying to make everything super gorgeous, is that going to help me get my first or next client? The answer is no. Good enough is good enough. What is going to help you get your next client? Reaching out, connecting with people, potential clients, and you can do this in so many ways on social media, through online forums, through creating content for them, creating content in places where they already are, like writing posts for other publications that your audience is reading, being on podcasts that your audience, that your ideal clients are listening to. I talk about all of this in my other videos and content, so make sure you check those out. Again, these are videos in of themselves, so we don't need to talk about it in that much detail here. But that is the one question that really it all boils down to if you are starting out and are wondering, okay, how do I even know? So those are the 4 reasons that I see time and time again, new and aspiring entrepreneurs end up wasting so much time, and we want to make sure that this does not happen to you. So take it all in, and then when you're ready, or right away, if you're loving what we've been talking about and you're excited to go out there and actually focus on getting clients, I've got a really awesome video for you on 4 really creative ways that my past clients and some of my colleagues have used to get their first paying clients. You are gonna love it. It's specific, it's tactical, and it's gonna get your creative juices flowing to see what's possible to go out there and get results relatively quickly. So that video is going to be either somewhere on the screen or in the description below, so make sure you click on it and check it out. It is pretty epic. All right, so make sure you do that, and then I've got one more thing to help you. It's a 20-second script to use to get your first or next paying client. It's an awesome, really great PDF. And again, you can get access to that either somewhere on the screen and or linked in the description below. So make sure you do that. And if you are new to my channel, first, welcome. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to be notified every week when I release a new awesome video on building your own online coaching course type business. All right, that's it for today. Thanks so much for being here. Leave me a comment to say hi or what your biggest takeaway was, and I will see you next time.